This video is brought to you by Chubbies. Go to chubbyshorts.com and use code DAN20 for a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more info.
Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, and this is my review for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which opens tomorrow, although because of preview screenings, that means it really opens today, except for the countries where it opened last weekend, but those grosses won't count until this weekend. Modern movie releases are so much fun, aren't they? Now, the embargo for this movie's been down for a while. There were some screenings that happened last week, but I wasn't able to make those screenings because they were 5 hours away the night before I traveled to New York. I just couldn't make the timing work. A lot of people have been asking where my review is, mostly patiently, some not as patiently. But, that's just the reality, the fact of not living in LA or New York anymore. Sometimes I can't get to every single advanced screening, but I still did my best. I went last night so that I could get you this review a little bit early, got a few hours of sleep, and now I'm kind of rested and ready to talk about the 8th and final Mission Impossible movie. Of course, this was originally intended to be part 2 of 2023's Dead Reckoning Part 1, which has been retitled to just Dead Reckoning, and it's also being hyped as the potential final film for Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. As with most of the modern Mission films, it's being sold largely on the back of its star and the insane stunts that he performs, and it's also tasked with recovering some of the luster lost from the previous film's underwhelming box office performance. So this movie has several missions that it has chosen to accept, and it is able to accomplish some, but not all of them. And let's get this out of the way up front. If you are going for big action spectacle, then there's not really a better franchise out there when it comes to that. Tom Cruise's seeming disregard for his own personal safety produces several great sequences, but really 2 in particular, one on a submarine and one on a plane, that dwarf anything else that's being done in Hollywood at the moment. They are by far the highlights of the film, and credit has to be given to Tom Cruise, the stunt team, cinematographer Fraser Taggart, and director Christopher McQuarrie for being able to pull them off. Unfortunately, I think that everything around those sequences falls apart somewhat. It feels like Christopher McQuarrie and his co-writer Eric Jenderson wrote what those action sequences were going to be and then desperately tried to assemble a plot around them to make those sequences make sense. And when you add the fact that this movie is trying to tie the entire franchise together, that means that there is a lot of ground to cover in the final reckoning. Consequently, about 90% of the non-action scenes in this movie feature a group of people, sometimes 2 groups of people, sitting in a room talking about what's happened next in the plot or what's going to happen next, what could happen next, what just happened, and the movie feels like a bit of a plot download for the majority of it. Frankly, it's kind of a mess. I mean, the evil AI, the entity, is still very much a threat, but the movie works to complicate things even more than that. Every problem becomes 3 new problems, requiring a subset of solutions, which birth new problems that have to be solved by new characters with new connections to the past. I have no issue with a complicated plot, but I do have problems with an overly complicated plot. And I think that that's what Christopher McQuarrie and by extension Tom Cruise have delivered with the film. Maybe they felt like they needed to give us, the audience, more bang for our buck by adding so much into the movie. But really, it's the action sequences that give us that value as audience members, and the entire movie could have benefited from a more streamlined story surrounding those sequences. One of the reasons this franchise has endured for so long is that it's built likable characters. Ethan, the sadly absent Ilsa Faust, Simon Pegg's Benji, Ving Rhames' Luther, Haley Atwell's Grace. In previous films, they all had time to shine, to let their personalities show, and also to save the world. There's no time for things like that in The Final Reckoning. Instead, every single scene serves as a function of the plot, usually with one clever line thrown in at the end to convince you, the audience member, that what you've just watched is a great scene, when really it's homework. The Final Reckoning is also very focused on referencing previous Mission Impossible films, sometimes reminding you of the same thing more than once. And worst of all, it also tries to retcon some things to give you the illusion that this franchise has been intricately plotted from the beginning. There's one revelation that is so absurdly out of left field and has absolutely no consequence to the plot that it has to have been included to just make it feel like this ties all the way back to the beginning, but there was no reason for it to be in the film, and it absolutely could have been cut. With credits, this movie is 2 hours and 49 minutes long. Christopher McQuarrie has said that he tried to make it shorter, but he just couldn't figure out a way to do it. But I think that half an hour could easily have come out of this film. A lot of it from the first hour of the movie, which for an action movie kind of drags, mainly because they're repetitive scenes that introduce the plot and remind us of things from Mission Impossible movies and the previous film that we probably already remember or have already been told. The good news is that while this is a long movie, it's not what I'd call a slog. It held my interest, but a lot of it didn't particularly interest me, if that makes sense. I just kind of leaned back and waited until the impressive parts. Its worst sin is that it strips most of the personality out of the characters entirely. I mean, Ethan Hunt's driving force is his love for the team, but we as an audience member don't really get a chance to love Ethan or the team or really anybody else when their only job is to map out the story for us. It's like the script considers them all to be narrators of the movie without any other actual characters. Having said all that, I do have to say that this is still a big screen spectacle of the highest order. I cannot fault the ambition of the action sequences or their execution, just what's around them. And Cruise is still giving 100% to the action and to his role as Ethan Hunt. He is one of the last real movie stars who will support a film from beginning to end and then tell you why you should go support someone else's. The rest of the cast is left to tell us the plot, which they do, convincingly at least, though I did find Isai Morales to be way too over the top as Gabriel, the returning villain from the last film whose role is far too muddled in this one. If anything, the movie has an excess of underutilized talent, and I wish they'd use actors like Hannah Waddingham, Nick Offerman, and Katie O'Brien more efficiently. At least Tramell Tillman, perhaps best known as Milchick on Severance, is able to wring every last drop of charisma out of what is otherwise a pretty thankless role. I think the one thing that could have excused a lot of the faults around The Final Reckoning is if it had been a great conclusion to this 8-film series. But is this Tom Cruise's last Mission Impossible? Maybe. I mean, it feels like it could be, but it also feels like maybe it's not. Consequently, it robs the ending of the movie of a lot of its impact. And even when you take the ending of the movie out, it doesn't really feel like a celebration of this franchise. It feels more like a wake. It's obvious that Cruise and McQuarrie love these films, and they have to get the credit for reviving them and for making them a showcase for the incredible set pieces that we've seen over the last decade plus. I mean, it's extremely impressive filmmaking. But it does feel that at some point, McQuarrie and Cruise have gotten a little short-sighted. It seems like they are focused so much on making an impressive movie that they lost sight of what it means to make a good one. The Final Reckoning isn't a bad movie, but it's not a great one either. And given the high production cost associated with this film, $300 to $400 million reportedly, I'm curious to see how many people are going to show up to the box office to see it, because once the excitement of seeing Tom Cruise hang off of a plane is worn off, I don't see a whole lot of people going back to the theater or recommending that people go see the movie based on the strength of its plot and characters. If I were to rate The Final Reckoning for stunts and spectacle, it would get an easy see it now rating, but taken overall, I can't really go any higher than it's fine. Rogue Nation and Fallout remain for me the easy peak of the series so far. And I worry that Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie just can't let go of these movies. At times, it feels kind of like they're filibustering. And I think the thing that they have to remember is that at some point, the audience, not them, gets to choose whether they will accept more movies or not. So those are my thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. What do you think? Are you heading out to see it this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this review, Chubbies.
Memorial Day weekend is here, which means it's time for summer to officially begin for everyone but the box office. And I'm excited for my first long day by the pool, enjoying as much sun as my pasty skin will bear. Yes, it's time to release your legs from their winter prison, and there's no better way than by treating them to a pair of Chubbies swim trunks. Chubbies Line Swim Collection not only looks awesome, but these swimsuits have liners to prevent chafing and 4-way stretch that moves with you, just in case you have to clean the pool before jumping in. And right now, you can use code DAN20 for 20% off of your order at chubbyshorts.com. You can also swap out your swimsuit for some of Chubby's original stretch shorts, which come in inseams ranging from 7 inches for careful people like me to 4 inches for those who like to live dangerously. They fit like they were tailored just for you while also having stretchy fabric for ultimate flexibility. And you can pair those shorts with something like the Chubby's Friday shirt, which is always my choice if I'm heading out for a day in the sun. Whether you're getting dressed for your workday, a workout, or a weekend getaway, Chubby's has you covered. For a limited time, Chubby's is giving viewers of the show 20% off of your order with my code DAN20 at chubbyshorts.com. That's code DAN20 at chubbyshorts.com. Support the show and tell them that I sent you. Don't blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubby's. Thanks to Chubby's for sponsoring this review, and thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned right here to the channel. I'm going to have a review of Lilo and Stitch probably tomorrow, as well as a lot more movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.